All right, I have jumped ahead a little bit, mostly because I can't make good videos. I'm working underneath the car right now. So that's why the lighting's horrible. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm assembling an LS engine. There must be 1,000 videos on how to do it. All I've done so far, just that I didn't video, was I put the front timing cover on. I used the balancer to center the seal. I replaced all the seals for the cover because it was leaking bad, or the oil pan gasket was leaking bad. I don't know, this thing was really dirty. And I will say that I purchased an installation tool for the balancer off of eBay or Amazon or somewhere with a roller bearing, and it was so easy to put this thing on. I mean, it was literally 5 minutes and it was on. No need to heat it up or beat it or anything. It went in like butter. No issues at all. One thing I did forget to do, because again, first LS assembly, so you learn these things. I wanted to shim the relief valve on the oil pump, and I thought I could do it with the timing cover on, but now that I see with it assembled, no, that's not going to happen. So I guess I'm running with the stock oil pan as it was for now. So the one thing I will video if I can is I'm about to install my aftermarket short oil pan, muscle car type oil pan, what do you want to call it? A shallow sump oil pan. So first thing to go on is the windage tray, and there's no instructions that come with the oil pan, but if you've seen the installation done by many other people, you know you have to cut down the windage tray. So I chopped off the front section and carved it in, kept the bolt holes, the forward from the back bolt holes, and just trimmed it shorter toward the rear. So that should work, and I'll get that bolted on. Alright, so we'll get the remaining 8 nuts on here. I think I have this trimmed enough. What I did was I set it inside the oil pan toward the rear and made sure that it would fit in and be below the rails. At least I think that's a good test. I'm going to find out shortly. Next will be the pickup tube. Alright, next thing is the pickup tube. And again, first time LS assembler, I had to remove the one windage tray screw, because the nut rather, because that bolts to the pan. So, okay, an O-ring came with this pickup. I just dumped some oil in the actual oil pump there, just to prime it up some, and I'm gonna lube this up. And we'll see how this fits. Since it's aftermarket, I don't necessarily trust these things, but alright, so I got the pickup to fit nicely into the oil pump, but this mount that bolts down to the windage tray is off about 1/4 inch, so it's going to need modifications. If I try to force this down and bolt it in, it's going to mess with the pump connection. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a bend. Alright, so with a little tweaking, I've got that on there. The tube, the pickup tube here uses 2 bolts, unlike the factory one that only used 1. But the 1 bolt, I just reused the original bolt, because again, I don't trust aftermarket hardware in these Chinese things. So this hex, the bolts they give you are 5mm hex head, but of course it's not going to stick on your Allen key, and you don't want to drop it in the engine. So what you can do is, if you're wearing gloves, take a piece of glove and wrap it on your Allen key. And now it doesn't fall. So now you can thread it in and not worry about it falling inside the engine. Okay, that was bad. All right. All right, so you just thread that in there. Not going to over crank these, just tighten them up. That's that. All right. Pickup tube is installed. All right, let me just test fit the pan without the gasket. Let's see if it clears everything. And it does not. It actually feels like the pickup tube is holding it up. All right, so just word of the wise, if you're going to use these Chinese oil pans, be prepared for who knows what. This pan would not sit on the block. Basically, the oil feed, their own oil feed that comes with it, was sticking up too high. So the pan wouldn't sit down. I mean, I put the pan on without the gasket, and it should sit on here without the gasket. I mean, you got to have a little bit of clearance for your pickup. It should sit flush, and it didn't. All right. I'm in the middle of doing the oil pan install, and this particular model, I had to shorten that mount about 1/8 of an inch. The oil pan was hitting the feed tube there. So one other video I saw where they installed this, it sure looked like this pan, they had to notch this rail here in order for clearance. This one had plenty of clearance, but it was actually sitting too high and hitting the pan, so I cut 1/8 inch out of the support bracket there. Now everything fits fine. I also checked, as you can see, I have my dipstick in from the truck, and it actually does work. I wanted to see if I was going to have to notch the plate there, but it works. So that's a good thing, because I didn't want to have to buy another dipstick tube. The truck dipstick tube is just fine. And it shows the full level, about, 1/2 inch over the bottom of the windows tray, which should be correct as well. So far, I guess, so good. Now, this oil pan install has been pretty frustrating. I will say that. I mean, I figured I'd have to cut the windows tray, but I didn't expect to have to modify the pickup tube as well, and it just worked out that way. So it's been interesting. So I'll get the pan bolted on now. I got to put some silicone on the corners, drop the gasket on, and bolt it down. All right, the oil pan is on. I didn't go over all the details of everything just because this is pretty frustrating of just the quality of this stuff you buy. I mean, to the point where the timing cover set that I bought for this, no, it wasn't a Felpro or a brand name. It was probably an off-brand name, but even the tube of RTV that came with it, the stuff was half cured. It was like junk. It's like, what is up with that? And the oil pan, the fact that I had to do modifications to the pickup to get this to fit, it's like, how much harder is it to just make it right? You're already making the part. Can't you just make it the right way? I mean, it's insane. So at this point, I'll just be glad if this thing has oil pressure. Anyway, bolts are all torqued to, I think it was 28 foot-pounds? No, sorry. Don't quote, it was 18 foot-pounds, I believe. The back two bolts were 106 inch-pounds, which works out to about 9 foot-pounds. So those are all torqued down. Put the oil filter adapter on. I used Permatex number 2 on the threads to seal that. Covers on, blank off plate rather. This port I won't be using. I pulled that plug out and sealed those threads with Permatex number 2. This port I cracked loose. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but in my opinion, I gotta get a TIG welder, because if it wasn't for the turbo, I would have not used this pan. I would have gotten a GM F-body pan. You know it works. It's factory. It's how it's made. I just do not like this aftermarket stuff. So if it works out, great. If I fire this thing and it has no oil pressure, I guess just have to go from there. Just a quick little more information also on these eBay swap pans. I've seen videos where guys have installed these and then they've swapped out the fitting that the oil filter threads onto so that they can put the truck oil filter on this pan. Now, the truck filter is a PF46. This pan calls for a PF48 as you buy it, which is a little smaller than the truck filter. There it is there. And the thing is, I did some research on this. I wanted to see what the difference was between a 46 and a 48. You know, why would they specify the 48? Well, there is a difference between the filters, and it's actually for the check valve. And that's usually to keep oil pressure up so that when the engine sits, the oil doesn't drain back. Well, the PF46 filter does not have a check valve in it. The check valve is actually in the pan. So I'd have to look at my truck pan and see what that is. It's just a spring and a valve or what it is, but the car filter has the check assembly inside. So I think, in my opinion, it's smarter to use the fitting that comes with the pan and use the correct oil filter, which is the PF48. Or in my case, I just went and grabbed a cheapie because it's only going to run for like the first, whatever, couple hundred miles until I change it again. But I grabbed a CarQuest, this part number here, and that's the same as a 48. And yeah, just information before you change your fitting for the oil filter. You may want to reconsider that. So I'm going to use the correct 48 filter, and it fit on there fine. We'll see how it goes.